Let's welcome Tony D'Angelo.
All right, the great Tony D here with us in the studio today. A great surprise. It's just a side note. Tony D is learning how to run all the equipment.
I don't know nothing about any machinery.
We're counting on you. Good morning, Tony. How are you?
Good morning, and proud to be among everybody.
All right, we got a lot to get to today.
We sure do.
Let's jump into it. So you wanted to talk or start with tax amnesty today?
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing. And every once in a while, the state will come out and provide amnesty for non-compliant taxpayers or citizens. And there's a bulletin October 29th. I do masquerade as a practitioner from time to time from the Commissioner of Revenue Services, Mark Boughton, saying that we will provide amnesty. It'll begin on November 1st, 2021, and ending January 31st, 2022. And there's a few statements as to, why taxes are your obligation. They are, oppressive taxation and fraud and money waste. Those are the things that really bother me. But you go to a website called GetRightCT.com, and it's curious to me, but it's something I think of note. Your tax amnesty application must be done on this GetRightCT.com website. You're doing it on a website, but what are you not doing, Lee Elci? You're not doing a tax return.
Okay.
Curious, right? Mother Mary and all the ships at sea, this is my obligation, this is what I must do. Little known fact. You don't start the limitations clock running until you file a tax return. Why do they want you on a website? Well, that's a very good question. Because if you're on a website and you bare your soul and you throw everything out and you say, that's great, you're a Duncan yo-yo potentially forever. Whereas if you see a practitioner who says maybe it's better you just do a tax return and start the clock running against the government,
right?
And do things honestly, but do it right. Perhaps that's a better thing for you. It's the whole misleading thing of we're your friends, do the right thing. We're here to help you. We want to, want to get all this together, and I just find that so bothersome. Little historical fact. Then again, given my age, it happens. John Gotti, right, for years and years and years, did not file a tax return.
Right.
And finally, one day, somebody mentioned it to his defense counsel. Usually these guys know absolutely nothing about taxes. Well, what do we got to do? We'll file a tax return. Okay, great. So they started him filing tax returns as a plumbing parts salesman making $12,000 a year. It was so pitiful. At the trial, they're holding up, Mr. Gotti, what is this? Of course, they can't see me. I'm holding up a pipe. I have no idea. I don't know what that is. Whatever the case may be. But, it's the whole thing of people get, what can I tell you? You are an adverse interest of the government. I'm not saying be dishonest, but whenever Connecticut comes out and says, I want to be your friend, your antenna should immediately go up.
Right. What's the qualifier? Well, how do you qualify for amnesty? Like, how would somebody get that?
Well, it's a pretty broad brush.
Yeah.
It's anybody pretty much who owes money.
Right. So you have to apply for it?
You have to apply, but you have to do it on the website.
Right.
Yeah.
But that would be
to get the relief.
So wouldn't you have to have already filed a tax return to be in that situation? Really?
Well,
how would you know how much? How would you know you owe taxes then?
Well, essentially evasion. I should have done it. I didn't do it. And then you're kind of like it. Every situation is different.
Okay, all right.
Every situation.
And then you eventually circle back to the website.
Yes.
If you think you owe, and then you ask, listen, I don't have any money. That kind of thing? Is that the idea?
Well, put it this way, it can be.
Yeah, okay.
It can be, depending with 1,000 dependings, but be careful.
Okay, so look out for that, guys. And all right, number 2, welfare system. What are we talking about here?
Well, I'll tell you, you know me. Many times I'll say I've got 9 subjects to talk about, or not one's hitting me in the head. When I left on Friday, I was here. I went to the grocery store. And I was wandering around the grocery store, and I'm a pitiful wreck in the grocery store. I'll start at one end, I'll go all the way down the other end, I'll come back. Learning a grocery store is very difficult to me. And I kept running into, and this to me was one of those Citizen Kane Rosebud moments, I kept running into a family a grandmother, probably about 10 years younger than I might be, a mother, she's 25 if she's a day, and a baby in a carriage. And they're wandering through the store. And I'm not saying this to be critical because I found it heartbreaking. And they're picking out items of food with great detail and concern. And it was, oh, we're going to get this. Oh, we're going to get that. Oh, we're going to watch this movie. Oh, whatever the case may be. Now, I can bounce the glittering generality in my head and say, well, this is quote unquote a welfare family. I'd find it hard not to believe. And Lee Elci, I was so heartbroken. And where I was heartbroken was that poor little baby.
Yeah.
What is going to happen to that baby? Where are the examples? And then this whole thing of, systemic racism. We want to talk about systemic racism. That's not the issue at all, because we're going to talk about critical race theory and we're going to talk about social and emotional learning. The issue is systemic poverty engendered by the political system.
Right.
And it's just, it's, and this is the wonderful thing about this example. No one can accuse me of being a racist. These people are white.
Right.
And it's like,
how do you break that cycle? I know that you can't answer that question today. It's impossible, but this is the question that we've always fought. It's an economic issue. Like there is a giant gap between the ultra rich and the ultra poor. Like it's a huge chasm.
Yeah. How do you break it? You set the bar higher. You don't lower it.
Right.
You don't pass baby bonds. You don't encourage fatherlessness.
Right.
And I'm not saying, will my state tax return be 30% 10 years from now? Perhaps. But leaving aside that issue alone, we have these things called critical race theory and social and emotional learning. And I mean, we're wrecking these children with no education and a welfare system. Take that baby. One day she decides, I'm going to study to be a teacher, or I'm going to do this, or whatever the case may be. She goes to her house and says that to her mother. And is her mother going to encourage her? How would her mother even know to encourage her? Because ostensibly, her mother came up on the same train.
Right.
And you have to turn the arrow some kind of way.
So you get that kid off the track or get him on a track that is worthwhile. What, through the school system in your mind, education? I mean, is that what we're talking about?
All of it.
Because I agree with you as far as the fatherless homes. I think that's huge, and I also agree with sort of a sense of self-reliance. But it does. I would love there to be. There's not an easy fix. So I mean, just to go down that road is just impossible. So.
You take hours.
All right, the big pockets. What's that about?
Well, this is really the issue. You have that little baby, and you have, we're going to make things right for children, and we're going to do it with something called, and this is really because I want that picture of this family to be in everybody's mind, and we're going to go back to it from time to time. Is social and emotional learning that we're going to make this type of learning where these children will feel comfortable and they'll feel safe and they'll be accepted. And as the academic journals say, improve their academic performance by means of less social and emotional stress. I'm not making fun of stress, but I am saying that if you're in any industry, if you're in any job, if you're in any sort of production, stress comes with the territory.
Right.
You have to deal with it. You have to build in order to do that. But social and emotional learning, there are 5 points: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision-making, known as the CASOL 5. I don't see math. I don't see science. I don't see social studies.
Right.
I don't see spatial relationships. I see none of that. Again, my mind goes to that baby.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's also something we were talking about the other day. While other countries are zooming ahead of us in some of these areas, in particular our Asian friends or the Indian friends who are teaching their kids math and science and all of that, we're deciding which bathroom to go to, which is to me it's insane.
And we're making a major issue out of it.
Yeah.
And I know we're coming close to the end of the segment, but there's a really good group. We're going to talk about it. They're called the Parents Defending Education. Someone had shared this with me on Twitter. I was doing some research on it. The amount of money being paid to consultants in social and emotional learning is gargantuan.
I believe it.
They listed the top 10. I'll go quick. Panorama Education, National Energy Project, Pacific Educational Group. Remember our pal Glenn Singleton? The Cirque in Connecticut, he was alluded to in the Supreme Court case of 2002 where they pretty much called him a reverse racist. Newzella, Acoban, Mid-Atlantic Equity, and a couple of others. Gargantuan amounts of money. Gargantuan amounts of money paid in this state. We don't know. We have no idea what it is because it all goes through the Department of Education and to the local. And I mean, we have teachers, right? We have administrators, whatever. We need consultants on top of that. I mean, I could be whacking at this thing for 10,000 years.
Tony
I probably
D,
will.
And you probably will. Tony D with us each and every Tuesday, 6:35. A must listen, and we thank him very much. He's actually here in the studio today. We're trying to get him to that point where he's pushing the buttons and spinning the dials so we can leave him here in the studio by himself. If we can get him to do a weekend show, we would love that down the road. That's just a taste out there to throw it out there. By the way, what is it about the supermarket that is daunting? Is it because you got to walk, like do you not have, like, because I go into the supermarket, I do this too. I'm like you, but I don't wander. I just, if I had to I start at one side and I go to the other, right? So if I forget an item on the left side, I don't go back. I'm like, I'll just do without it for the week. Is it just like you forget stuff and you go back to get it?
Well, yeah, and when you live, 10 miles from the closest grocery store, you tend to get a little bit unforgiving on yourself. And I tell you, it's not good for me.
I like to bargain shop. I mean, I'd be one of those people at the, I got the dented cans, and I like that. It's like, hey, listen, I just saved a buck on these green beans.
I know, what a good boy am I. I'm the same way.
All right, Tony, thank you, buddy.
Welcome.